Hey everyone, it's your favorite host, Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. And today we are going to bring a powerhouse speaker to the Gentleman Style Podcast stage. This lady is phenomenal. She's impactful, she's moving mountain, and she is a conqueror. She is victorious in everything she touches, and she is truly a sight to behold, and she has conquered so many obstacles in her path, and she is taking the world literally by storm. You won't want to miss 1 second of what she has in store for us today. Stay tuned, stay with us. Here we go. Everyone, I'm your host, Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. And today I have Holly Francis. She is a Canadian writer, speaker, illness survivor, advocate, and certified trainer. And she is putting me to shame. I felt bad. I felt like I needed to run a lap as soon as she entered the room. This woman is absolutely phenomenal. She's also a mom in a blended family of 5 and the face behind Holly After GBS on social media, and wherever you can find her on all social media platforms, she is fantastic. She also is a big time advocate, and that's what we're going to get into today on the show, talking about how she overcame this rare disease. So I can't hold this lady back anymore. She is a force by nature, and here on the Gentleman Style Podcast Show, she's going to spill some of the tea on her epic journey. So help me welcome to the stage, Miss Holly Francis. Welcome to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. I almost forgot what show it was. Welcome, Queen. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I am doing great today. How are you?
Fandango. Even better now, because I want to get into your story and how you have just changed the world and lives and impacted so many lives of this rare disease. But first, I want to ask, what got you into being an author, a speaker, a writer? You have an incredible mind and you can do anything you literally set your mind to. Why those avenues? What started that train?
Well, I mean, going back to what I've gone through with GBS is the illness that I had, and everything that I went through, it was just so powerful, and it changed my life so much, and I wanted to share that with the world, and I wanted to basically, I wasn't able to explain what I went through in one conversation. It was impossible to just talk about it in 5 minutes. And there was just so much that I went through, so much that my life how my life was changed. And I just wanted to write a book. I just wanted to get everything out on paper and not only educate others about the disease that I went through, but just to remind others that, life is so short.
Absolutely. So true. Absolutely. Life is too short. And it's necessary. It's so many times we look back on our lives and we feel like, you know what, I'm not doing enough. And it takes that moment. It takes that epic moment sometimes, that push that we need to realize, hey, I'm capable of so much more. And I think that's the kind of core. I was stalking you on Facebook. I'm gonna just be honest right now. I was stalking you on Facebook, and I just kept watching because her clips, y'all, they're not long. But they're so impactful in the amount of time that she's on there. Tell us, tell us first off, what is GBS and how did it all start with you? What is this rare disease?
So GBS stands for Guillain-Barré Syndrome. It's a rare autoimmune disorder. So it can be kind of compared to multiple sclerosis. It's very sudden. Most people have never heard of it before. I hadn't heard of it. And it usually comes on very quickly. So for me, I was in my 20s. I was at home, completely healthy, no health issues in my past. And all of a sudden, I had actually just given birth to my daughter about 3 weeks before. So I was at home and adjusting to life with a newborn, and I was so happy. I was in such a good time in my life. And then this all happened just so suddenly. And it first started with a tingle in my fingertip, which at the time I thought was just, I thought I had actually burned myself or something because it was this odd tingle. Didn't realize until weeks later that that was the first symptom. From there, like I'm talking within an hour or two, all of a sudden I had this odd pain in the back of my neck. And it was just kind of bothering me and getting worse as like the minutes went by. And then I was getting weak. I thought maybe I'm getting the flu or I'm just really tired. I've got a newborn at home, so maybe I'm just like exhausted. And I went up the stairs that night. So this was like within a couple hours of that first tingle in my finger. And I was really struggling to get up the stairs. And I'm like, my legs are so heavy. And just like, what is going on? And so at that point, I actually thought that I had maybe a pinched nerve because like I had this weakness in my legs and I had this tingling and this pain. And so I'm like, yeah, I've got this pinched nerve and I should go see a doctor. So I actually drove myself to a Medi Center and went and seen a doctor. And the doctor said, yeah, I think you're right. I think you've got a pinched nerve. And sent me on my way and said, let's get you in for a physiotherapist maybe tomorrow, see if somebody can see you and we'll give you some pain meds for now. So I went back home and everything just magnified 10 times worse. I was putting my daughter to bed and the pain was just horrific and I'm in tears and I'm going like, I don't think I can handle this. And the pain meds are doing nothing. So I'm on the floor, my daughter's sleeping in the bassinet and I'm trying to just like do stretches and massage my neck and nothing's getting better. And then my daughter woke up in the middle of the night to feed. And when I stood up, I had no use of my legs and I fell to the ground. So it was terrifying. And in my mind, I still thought it was a pinched nerve. And I stood, I was able to stand up again. And I'm like, this is not right. Something is wrong. So I went to the hospital. I had my husband at the time. He dropped me off because we're thinking I'm just going to get some medication. They're going to maybe get me a physiotherapist to see me or something, and then I'll be on my way. And I had no idea that that would actually be the last time that I would leave the hospital for almost 5 months. So it's very, very fast, very sudden. And immediately after I got to the hospital, I seen the doctor that recognized what it was. And he said, I think you have Guillain-Barré Syndrome. Again, I had never heard of it before. And he said, we're going to monitor you. We're going to see how severe this gets. GBS can range from very mild to more severe. And we just kind of don't know how it's going to play out. So you're just going to need to stay at the hospital for now. And I remember thinking like, I can't stay at the hospital. I got to go home. I got a newborn to take care of. And he's like, this is very serious. You need to stay here for a while. So I'm in bed and everything just progressed, continued to get worse and worse and worse. My legs completely stopped working. I was not able to move or get out of bed. From there, it's quickly spread. My family came in. They brought my newborn in. I had to stop breastfeeding because I was on so much medication. The pain was so severe. And within 72 hours, the paralysis had spread up my entire body and affected my diaphragm, and I could no longer breathe anymore. And they rushed me basically to the ICU, put me on a ventilator. And it was terrifying. And it felt like I was dying. I thought that I was. And my newborn, I mean, they were putting her on my chest and they were trying to give me that inspiration to keep going. But I was like, I can't do this. Like the pain was so bad. And I stayed like that for weeks and months. And I remember thinking like, I can't do this. How could this happen to me after giving birth? Like I was supposed to be at home. I was supposed to be a new mom. I was supposed to be spending time with my daughter. And all of a sudden, I was incapacitated, completely paralyzed, unable to move anything. My newborn daughter's beside me on the bed and I can't even reach out and touch her. I can't talk to her. I can't breastfeed her or anything. And I just felt worthless. And the thing with GBS is that majority of patients do actually recover and they do get better. And so I just had to be patient, which was very hard when you're dealing with severe pain. I was very sick as well. So I was dealing with a lot of nausea and vomiting, severe pain that like narcotics barely even touched. And it was just awful. And I just struggled every single day. It was so hard to just continue fighting. Of course, my daughter was kind of my inspiration, and on the hard days I knew like I wanted to be a mom and I wanted to get back to her. So she was that inspiration, and over time I did start to show signs of improvement. So like my breathing started to improve a little bit, and like my heart rate was under control, my blood pressure was under control. And so my family was just really pushing me, and they were my strength when I had very little strength in me. Um, and I just kept fighting and kept fighting. And they actually brought another GBS survivor in to see me in the hospital, and he really gave me inspiration when he walked into the hospital room that I was in, and he's like, "I've been in your shoes, and you're gonna get through this." And so that was a big motivation for me. I'm like, if he can do this, then so can I. He was a dad and he had young kids, and I was like, he got back to his kids, I need to get back to mine. From there, the paralysis started to very slowly fade. So it started with a fingertip. That's what first started moving again. And then after a few days, then it was like my hands started moving, and then my arms. And then I had to learn how to get off the ventilator. And that was definitely the hardest part of my journey. It was like running a marathon I had never trained for. I felt like I was running as fast as I could and felt like I was going to not be able to breathe at any second. And we started with like 30 seconds at a time. And I remember thinking like, I feel like I'm going to die, and crying after, and just being so broken and afraid, and just thinking I'm never going to be able to do this. Like, I'm never going to be able to breathe on my own. I'm never going to get off the ventilator, which means I'm never going to get out of ICU, which means I'm never going to be who I was before GBS. I'm never going to be a mother to my child. And it was such a dark time for me. But I knew that I had to keep going. I knew that I had to keep trying. I knew that I had to just put in effort, and at least give it my all every day, even if that meant 2 minutes off the ventilator. And so I did that, and over time it actually got easier and easier. And I started with like 30 seconds, and then a couple minutes, and then it progressed to a couple hours. And as the weeks went by, I got a little bit better, and I lasted a little bit longer, until eventually I got off the ventilator completely, after I was able to breathe on my own for 72 hours. And that was a huge turning point in my recovery. And I was able to get out of ICU. So that was after 70 days of being in the hospital. Moved out of ICU, moved to another ward, basically with a lot of geriatric patients. So I was the youngest person on the ward. I was only 26, and I started a very intense physiotherapy to learn how to use every muscle in my body. So I'd lost 30 pounds while I was in ICU. I couldn't do anything. Like I had movement, but I was so weak that I could barely hold anything in my hand. So I had to learn how to eat and drink, how to feed myself, how to brush my hair, how to brush my teeth. They taught me how to hold my daughter, which was also a big motivation. It was amazing because she was learning to hold a bottle at the same time that I was. So, which was really motivating for me, because it was like, I'm not the only one going through this, and she makes it look so easy. So from there on, yeah, it was just kind of snowballed from there. And I just had this motivation after learning how to breathe on my own. That gave me this fire that I had no idea I even had. It was like I had convinced myself that I was not going to be able to breathe on my own. And then I did. And so when I accomplished that, I was like, oh, I got this. I can accomplish anything that I put my mind to. So I learned how to use my arms again, strengthen them. I was in the hospital for another several months and learned how to do everything, including standing. Eventually, I learned how to take my first steps. Over time, we practiced with a walker and we walked around the halls. And eventually, I progressed to a cane. And then eventually, I was able to walk on my own. And I came home after 126 days in the hospital and started my life as a new mom again. So that's kind of my story.
What was the onset of GBS? What kicked it off? Was it the birth of your daughter? Was it something at the doctor? What started the tingling sensation? And for those of you, the definition is in the comments. But what started it, Miss Holly?
So Guillain-Barré syndrome is usually triggered by some sort of autoimmune response. So it really can be anything that triggers it. But for me, they believe, and with GBS, they're not able to guarantee like this is what happened, this is what caused it, but they can make guesses based on the timeline. So GBS usually comes on a few weeks after a major kind of event that your body thinks is a major event. So for me, that was giving birth. So they think it was either giving birth, the childbirth, or I also had a C-section. So I just had a very basic C-section. When I was giving birth, my daughter just was in an awkward position, wouldn't come out. So we had a C-section. And so surgery is also a very common trigger of GBS. So not sure if it was one or the other or the two combined that just caused this autoimmune response in my body.
How has family impacted you? I'm sorry. I'm like fighting back tears right now because you are amazing. And you know what's crazy about this is I've watched this. I've watched her channel. I've checked her out on YouTube, and I've watched this. But to hear it live and direct, the passion, the power, the drive, the motivation. Your daughter. How did family your support you through this?
Oh man, my family literally, like, I would be where I am today if it wasn't for them. They were so supportive. I was so thankful. Not just my family, like even the hospital staff, the doctors, the nurses, the physiotherapists that I dealt with. Just that extra push on the days that were really hard. I just felt like I couldn't go on, and there's a really dark period that I went through where I actually tried to convince my family to let me go because I couldn't handle being in pain and being paralyzed and not being able to move anymore. And so I had asked the doctors to shut my ventilator off. And my family and my doctors, of course, they were so strong for me, and they just really fought for me on those hard days. And they were like, we're not letting you go. Like, we have to fight through this. And of course, just reminding me of my daughter. And so she was just my biggest motivation to just fight and eventually hope that I would get back to her one day.
Wow. Wow. I wanted to marinate on that. Holly Francis, y'all. Ma'am, you are a force to be reckoned with, and I knew that before you even came on the show. But that is amazing. You and I think that's a hard step to actually admit. You wanted to let go. You wanted to stop fighting. I think all of us have that. I think all of us have that moment where we're like, enough is enough. And that support system, your community, rallied to your aid and came by your side and cheered you on and pushed you to keep fighting and to stay in the fight. And that is truly crucial. That is truly significant. Another round of applause from Ms. Francis, y'all. Ms. Francis, what is your biggest takeaway? What is your biggest takeaway from? You've mentioned several things throughout the duration of your experience. But what is the biggest takeaway that you got from this?
Oh, that's so hard because I got so many takeaways. I got so much out of that experience. Even like when I was first recovering, It was hard at first to think that like I lost out on the first basically almost 6 months of my daughter's life. By the time I got home, she was almost 6 months old. So I lost out on breastfeeding. I couldn't breastfeed after got home. I never got to take her on her first walk, like her dad did that. I didn't get to take her to the mommy and me classes that we had originally like been booked to take, and I had to cancel out of those. And so I just missed out on a lot of first moments that I was really looking forward to. And I remember being very sad about that for a really long time. But then I was like, I can't dwell on that. Like the time is gone, and all I can do is make the best of where I am now. And so it just gave me this intense gratitude. So for me, gratitude is the biggest thing, is just grateful that I can walk, grateful that I can like move my hands and lift a cup to my mouth, which at one point was so hard to do. Gratitude that I get to be a mom. When I got to change my daughter's diaper, I cried because it was such a small task that I could now do. And so just gratitude to be able to do the simplest of things that we all take for granted. Gratitude to be a mother, gratitude to be a woman and to be me and live my life and do what I want. So it's really inspired me to live my life more full, right? And like we all say that, but for me, it was like, you know what? I always said I was going to go do this, and I always said I was going to go do that, but I never put plans in motion. And so I did that. I started traveling more. I started going out and doing the things that I wanted. I went hiking more. I went for walks. I took my daughter to things. Took her to Disneyland. Just had more fun. Like it's just, life is so short. And so I think it's inspired me to push myself as well, to the point where like I don't hold myself back. Like I don't set limits on myself anymore, because I'm like, I look back on when I learned how to breathe, and when I remind myself, you thought that was impossible and you did it, so you can do it again. And so I got into strength training. I got into the best shape of my life. I'm stronger than I ever was before GBS. I really fell in love with fitness. I got certified, even though I had all these like residual limitations. I still have a little bit of weakness and nerve pain from time to time. And I was like, I don't care. I'm still going to go get certified, and I'm still going to go after these things. And I started writing my book. And so my book will finish this December, and I can't wait to share it with the world. And I hope that it just reminds people like life is short, and go after your dreams. Life can change in the blink of an eye.
So true. So true. Life is the biggest teacher of us all. Life, you can say what you want, and people have different opinions on this, but you can say what you want. But I think life, just like what you said, life is the biggest teacher, and it can show us things that we didn't know about ourselves, that we may have even missed if we weren't paying so close attention to it. And I'm not saying, I'm not advocating in any way, shape, or form that you should have went through what you experienced, but life definitely, this is her website, y'all. Take a look. This is powerful. She has become my hero. The fight, sticking in the fight. That's what this is about. And in those crucial moments when you want to feel down and feel sorry for yourself, push, push. Miss Francis, what would you say to the young girl or the young boy who has GBS today? What advice would you say to them if they were watching this episode right now? What would you want them to know?
I would want them to know that GBS is often stands for getting better slowly. So even though like you feel like everyone's telling you you're going to get better, everything's going to be fine one day, you're going to recover from this, because most people do. It's hard when you're in the thick of it and you feel like you're not going to get better and everything is taking so long and you just want to get back to your life. So I really encourage people to celebrate every tiny success. And I mean, like, celebrate, like, make it such a big deal that you have lifted a cup and you're able to feed yourself again. And it's those little tiny celebrations, those are what add up to the big accomplishments, right? Like, I have a lot of before and after photos of me in the hospital and then in the gym. And a lot of people are like, wow, I want to get from that point to this point. And it's like, you're getting there, you're doing it. It's these tiny little accomplishments along the way that get you to that point. So it's just one step at a time, one day at a time. Sometimes it's even 1 hour at a time. And another big thing that I think I want to point out is just that our bodies are never the same after GBS. And so we deal with a lot of nerve pain, a lot of fatigue where we get really tired easily. So it's learning to rest, learning to listen to your body when it's telling you, you know what, I've had enough. Listen to it, take a break, relax. You can always jump back into it tomorrow.
That's so hard to do, right? It's
It
so
is.
hard. We want to keep going. We want to answer every cry of our child. We want to be there. We want to jump. And that's why I asked in the beginning about family, because the family, your community rallied to you because they understood that you needed to rest. Mommy needs to rest right now so she can continue to fight and continue to fight
Absolutely.
on. So I love that. I absolutely love that. I wanted to poke the bear. You did something unique, and you were a staunch advocate of not taking the COVID-19 vaccine, but then you did. Can you tell us what that experience was like, if you're able to share?
Yeah, that one's a tough one. So vaccines are a trigger for Guillain-Barré syndrome. So it's listed right on the pamphlet of as possible side effects. It usually happens about 1 in a million or so in vaccines in the past, and so I was aware of that. I myself don't personally get vaccines and hadn't in the past because I was just always hesitant and worried. I don't want it to trigger a case of GBS again. The chance of getting GBS a second time is very rare, but it's still, for me, I just didn't want to take that chance. For me, I would um, rather risk getting like influenza, which is another common trigger of GBS, rather than inject myself with something that is known to trigger. So when COVID came out and COVID was happening, and obviously the world is falling apart, I was very hesitant, very worried about getting the vaccine. Um, I didn't think I was going to at all, and my plan was not to because I assumed same thing, that COVID-19 vaccine, just like many other vaccines, that it could possibly trigger cases of GBS, and so I didn't want to take that chance. So I didn't for a very long time, but then it was all over the news, and it was happening more and more often, where I was seeing people ending up in the hospital and ending up on ventilators. And in my area, the cases were climbing, and it was a very scary time. And for me, I just decided that I wasn't seeing and I wasn't hearing within the community. I mean, I knew it was happening, that GBS was being triggered by the COVID-19 vaccine, but it wasn't happening a lot at that time. And so I did a lot of thinking, and it was like, I could be that 1% or 2% that ends up back on a ventilator because of what I went through. And I just didn't want to take that chance. People were in the hospital. There were so many people fighting for their lives in the hospital. And I was like, even though it's so rare, I've been that rare. And so I didn't want to take the chance of me catching COVID, having a very serious case, ending up back in ICU again. So I ended up getting vaccinated. I was double vaxxed, no complications, no issues whatsoever. That being said, with everything that's happened since then, I have learned a little bit more. I do see a lot of cases still coming on after the vaccine, also coming on after COVID. So, I mean, it's just, you just never know what can trigger it. But that being said, I have made the decision not to take any more vaccines.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. I want whose idea was it to bring in someone who recovered from GBS to you in the hospital? Whose idea was that?
That was actually one of my nurses. So my nurse had actually cared for this patient, and he was actually in the same room that I was in 2 years before. So it was a wild story how he had literally been where I was in the same bed. And so the nurses just saw me really struggling. They saw me really struggling to keep going, and they wanted to they kept telling me, like, you're going to get better, you're going to recover from this, and I just didn't believe them. For me, when they're telling me that you've got this rare disease, and remember that, like, I'm very sedated, I'm very out of it, heavily medicated, and so they're telling me that you've got this rare disease, and many of the nurses and doctors are saying, I've never seen a case of it before. And so I felt very alone. I felt like I was one of, like, the only people in the world that had GBS. And so it was very frightening. And so they knew that if they could bring in another patient, somebody that had recovered, that that would give me hope. And it most certainly did.
Miss Francis, what's next for you? What's in store? You got the book coming out. Tell us what my audience can expect with the book.
So the book is, it's a rewrite. I wrote the book 10 years ago, actually, when I first recovered, because I just wanted to share with my family and friends. This is kind of what I went through. I'd always wanted to write a book when I was growing up, but I had nothing to write about. I certainly had lots to write about now. So I had written the book 10 years ago and just kind of quickly put it out about what I had gone through. And then my life really went on this new path. I had put all my hospital videos together and put it on YouTube, and it had gone viral. And from there, my life has really changed drastically. So I've now become this advocate for GBS. I wanted to remind others going through it, like, you can get through this. Please don't give up. And I wanted to be like that person that had come to see me in the hospital for people all over the world. So I've connected with people all over Canada, all over the US, other countries. It's been amazing. And people have reached out to me and said, like, I had no idea there was another GBS patient out there. Like, yeah, it's been amazing to be able to just show other people, like, hey, you're not alone. So that has kind of been my life for the last little while. I've just been really focused on my social media. I'm heavily involved with the GBS Foundation here in Canada. I run, like, awareness campaigns. We visit patients in the hospital, just kind of anything to bring awareness to GBS because it is so rare. So the next steps is just really continue that awareness. My book will be coming out, and it's a rewrite, as I mentioned, because I wanted to incorporate everything that I've done since then. So I didn't just recover. I turned this into this crusade of helping other people that are not only going through GBS, but going through any kind of struggles in their life, just to remind them, like, you can go through really, really awful times and you can come out stronger, and you can find these silver linings in whatever it is that you go through. So next steps are just, get that book out into the world and just spread that awareness and spread those positive vibes.
Absolutely. This show is called Gentleman Style Podcast. And so for my men, Miss Francis, how can men support their partners who may be going through GBS? What can we do to support our wives, our spouses, our husbands when they're going through something this scary? What can we do to help?
I think just really open up the conversation, open communication about really what it is you're feeling. I think that a lot of people don't realize that when you go through an illness like GBS, and even if you recover, and there's a lot of illnesses like that as well, that even if you look like you're okay, even if you look like you're having a great day, you may not be. You may be in a lot of pain. You may be struggling emotionally, physically, everything. It really is tough to go through an illness, especially a rare one that your family and friends don't really understand. They can't possibly understand what it's like to experience what you do, to lose your identity, to lose your ability to do things, to not be able to keep up to the way that, like, your friends and your family are. So it's very tough. So I think it's just that communication about how they're feeling, what they're experiencing, what their struggles are, and just really having grace for them, and patience, and understanding that things take time, and just being there for them as much as possible, offering support. Sometimes it's hard because people don't want to let other people help them, especially when they're going through GBS and they're struggling to do tasks, like simple tasks, like opening. Like for me, it was opening baby bottles. It was so hard for me to do when I was recovering. But just asking for help can help when you're struggling with that like energy levels, right?
Or a jar of pickles.
Yeah, absolutely. I still struggle with opening jars to this day, so that's what the husband comes in for.
Absolutely. Men, open all the jars, open all the pickle jars. Miss Frances, you have been phenomenal today, and I thank you for making time and sharing and giving back in this way. You do a number of different things. You and your family have given back in so many different ways, so many different venues and avenues, and you are again become my hero. And so I thank you for what you do. I thank you for staying in the fight, and being here and continuing to do what you have been put on this earth to do. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. How can my audience connect? I see your website, but if you can share it and spell it out for my audio listeners as well. How can we connect with you? How can we grow with you? How can we learn more?
For sure. So my website is just kind of the all-stop shop, hollyaftergbs.com. But I hang out mostly on Instagram. That's kind of where I like on my stories. I'm always sharing about what I'm up to. But I also am on TikTok and on Facebook as well. So you'll see me on various different platforms sharing different things. And I literally answer every question, every message that I get, because I love connecting with other people. So feel free to send me a message anytime.
Check her out. Love it. Connect. We have to connect and uplift this woman and her family and what they're doing. They are making strides in the world, and they're making a difference and making the world a better place. Thank you again, Miss Holly. I appreciate you so much. I want to say this to you publicly. Don't ever quit. Don't ever give up. We need you. We need what you are doing, and you are necessary.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And thank you, my audience, for tuning in to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. I hope this message encourages you and inspires you. And if you are going through GBS, stay in the fight. Keep going. Keep pushing. Get around people that are going to continue to fight the good fight with you. Get away from the naysayers, get away from the negativity, and surround yourself with what you originally started with. And in Miss Frances' case, it was family, loving on her daughter, and continuing to give back to the world, because that's what's truly important. So like I always end every show, take care of your friends, take care of your family, and always take care of business. This is Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show, your favorite gentleman, and Holly Frances, the myth, the legend herself, signing off. Love you guys. Bye.